Empezamos con la sección de preguntas y respuestas. Si alguien tiene una pregunta, por favor, de levantar su mano. Okay, I have a question. If for the night cooling, is there anything you need to do?
Yeah.
Or if not, if you know that it would be a warm night,
Yes.
what do you do?
So for the night cooling, I think you have, if there is no night cooling in the place that you are, you can use one of those strategies to use like some sort of irrigation. Remember that picture I showed you? They're throwing water on those animals to cool down their temperature. So during the night, that would be a good time to do that. It's to cool down the animals. So it's kind of an artifact night cooling or a man-made night cooling for these animals. So that will help these animals. In the US, they use a lot of this during the day too. So when it's very hot, they actually do that in the day. I think during the night would be a nice time to do it.
Maybe this will not be a good question, but I'll ask it anyway. Perdón, a lo mejor la pregunta no es muy correcta. Hay subproductos, aquí hay muchas compañías de cerveza que producen subproductos y algunas están vendiendo para ganado engorda y para ganado lechero. Hablo del subproducto de la cerveza. ¿Podría en algo ayudar ese subproducto, ya que es un subproducto de cerveza, en la cuestión de los microbios que mencionaba usted, benéficos a la producción de carne principalmente o a la producción de leche? ¿O no tiene nada que ver que venga de la cerveza? Porque hablaba usted de microbios relacionados con la cerveza, ¿no? Entonces, es una pregunta.
So, did you say made out of deer?
Yeah, there are some products up north that different companies produce. Does that has anything to do with maybe microbial population?
Yeah. So this is not a new idea, right? So for quite some time, and I think Dr. Su actually presented some of this yesterday, using transferring rumen fluid from moose to cattle and things like that. So this is not a really new idea. And actually that started, if you remember this, that actually started with transferring rumen fluid from animals that were adopted to Synergistes jonesii. Remember the Synergistes? You still have a lot of problems with some of the legumes here. So Synergistes was able to break down the mimosine in the feed leucaena. So it may work for some reasons, for some specific things, but in general, you always have to test it and make sure that it really helps your situation. And like I said, you have different feeds. You do have different forages, different raw feed, different types of feeds, different byproducts. So if it works for one, it may not work for the other. And besides that, we need to have some sort of a guarantee that the microbes that they are saying we're collecting is consistent throughout the product. So there might have some variation from different batches of production. I think it's a valid approach, but I think I'd like to see more data on that. And a lot of that has been done too with condensed tannins. Remember, condensed tannins also done, a lot of people using this transfalnation or using rumen fluid to increase condensed tannins degradation. But the real reason was really the Synergistes jonesii when they started trying to degrade mimosine from leucaena. It may work. May not be a general rule of thumb, but it may work.
Gracias.
You're welcome.
Luis, I believe he mentioned something about beer residues.
Oh, beer,
Yes.
not deer. Okay, beer. Distiller's grain.
Yes.
Wet.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
To change the rumen microbes
No.
or something like that?
No.
Ese es su producto.
Es el.
Just the same product.
Yeah.
There's some feedlets that feed this brewer's grain, and that's what I was talking about. But,
Wet.
maybe there'd be the same variability. A lo mejor es la misma variabilidad. Por ejemplo, utilizando un 10-15% de un subproducto de cerveza o distiller's wet brewer's grain. Could that influence micropopulation o puede influir en la población de microbios?
Well, yes, it can change. It depends the composition of the DDG, right? And
Byproduct, barley.
barley. Well, it can change. Every time you're changing the nutrients of that, whatever is the composition, you can change. That is no question about it. Yes, it will change. I don't know if it's going to change for better or worse, but yes, it will change.
I think he's asking about the residual yeast in the byproduct.
Yes.
The residual yeast in the byproduct is the same thing as the residual of the yeast from the ethanol. I don't know if you're producing a lot of ethanol from sugar cane. I don't know how much sugar cane you produce ethanol here. The dry yeast from the ethanol production is a wonderful feed, because it provides all of the essential amino acids, and it has the right profile of the amino acids, in addition to providing some of the minerals, including chromium. So the dry yeast from the ethanol production is a fantastic feed. As a matter of fact, if you go back to that when it was done in Brazil produced a lot of ethanol, right? So it produced a lot of a dry yeast. As soon as the people figured out the dry yeast was a fantastic feed, they increased the price. It was free in the beginning, and then they increased the price. So the DDG or any type of fermentation, the dry yeast would be a fantastic byproduct feed, but for a short period of time and for a price. It's a fantastic amino acid profile, fantastic source of minerals. Yes, I would feed it in a heartbeat. Usually no more than 0.8 kilos per day.
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
Sí, buenos días, doctor. Muy buena su presentación. No alcanzo a ver en la tabla donde viene la relación de la temperatura con la humedad relativa, donde realmente afecta el estrés calórico es, o sea, qué porcentaje de temperatura y qué porcentaje de humedad relativa relacionadas es donde afecta más el estrés calórico. O sea, en una temperatura donde esté alta, arriba de 40 grados, y no haya humedad relativa, ¿no afecta?
Yes. So what happens is this. Remember, I did not talk much about the chart. Yes, but that was the chart that had like 4 different colors: the white, the yellow, the orange, and the red. So the red was really a combination of temperature and humidity. So if you have a low temperature, but if you have a high humidity, the THI index will be high. So in essence, what it says is a low humidity, let's say 30%, but a high temperature will have an effect the same amount, the same way that a low temperature and a high relative humidity. Something that I did not mention to you. I mentioned quickly. I said that is the THI is the one that we use the most, but it's not the only one. The problem with the THI is that it does not take into account solar radiation. And it also does not take into account the impact of wind. So, you have to take that graph or interpret that graph a little bit concerned about the effect of radiation and the effect of wind on helping in terms of the heat stress.
¿Había otra pregunta?
Sí, doctor, gracias. En este tiempo, ¿habrá alguna estadística de que esté aumentando el problema de estrés calórico aquí en México? Y si sabrá usted qué hallazgos en la necropsia tenemos a la muerte de golpe de calor.
No, I really don't know that information. I really don't know. But think about this. It really depends on the proportion you have of Bos indicus and Bos taurus. It really depends on the type of animals you have. So you may actually have the exactly same heat, exactly same death loss if you change the proportion or the proportion of the type of animals you're feeding. If you have more resilient animals. And Bos indicus, remember it's not only Bos indicus, you have to keep an open mind in the sense that there might be other species of Bos indicus out there that might be more feasible for production under a heat stress environment or a more warmer environment. So maybe we need to start looking into that, moving away from the typical breeds that we use. Keep your minds open. The same way there are other breeds out there that they're more resistant to heat stress, there are breeds that they're more tolerant to drought, to lack of water. So we have to keep an open mind to that. Maybe in 50 years we're not going to have Angus. Maybe in 50 years we're not going to have any of these breeds. It might be something different. So bye-bye, your marbling ribeye.
Agradecemos al doctor Tedeschi por su participación.